Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made my latest dance track, the Magic Flute. I'm going to be showing you the process and how I make my tracks start to finish. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Right then guys, so the movement that I used for my remix was the first movement of the first act of the Magic Flute, Zuidfa. It's got a really energetic vibe to it. It's very, very bouncy and very vigorous and lively. So this is why it's perfect. I thought it was perfect for a dance track. So the first thing that I do when I am trying to make a classical dance remix, once I hear a track and I think it would work well, I then find the score. So as you can see here, I've got the score, found an orchestral score online, and it's just a matter of transcribing. So the first 16 bars of the piece I've literally just transcribed from the score into Logic Pro with all the different instruments. And obviously it's just a matter of getting levels right, getting the compression right, and making sure all the different instruments are mixed properly. But yeah, that's the process when I first start. So I spend quite a lot of time on Spotify, kind of listening through classical pieces, trying to find tracks that I think would sound good in a dance track, and this was definitely one that stood out to me. I heard this track years ago when I was just kind of scrolling through, digging through Mozart's work, and I found the Magic Flute, and I really, really enjoyed this movement. I really like minor pieces that are, very lively. So this is in C minor. It's quite a dark piece, but it's also got that energy. And those are the kind of pieces that I really, really enjoy listening to. So that's why I wanted to really make this a dance track. So the first 16 bars, I've just transcribed everything. It was pretty straightforward. The only thing that I was still getting used to, because this is my first transcription in a little while, was the viola line, the alto clef. I'm quite unfamiliar with that. So yeah, just getting used to that new clef. But apart from that, yeah, all straightforward, getting those first 16 bars, as you can hear here. So I've got lots of different elements going on there. I've basically just copied the orchestral parts exactly, apart from the cello part here. I felt the cello itself, just by itself, didn't quite give the fundamentals of the bass enough weight. So I added another layer, just kind of like a pizzicato layer, an octave down from where the cello was playing, just to give it that extra level of kind of strength in the mix. So it gives it, yeah, the bass stands out more now because of that. Without it, it just sounds a bit empty. Especially if you're listening to headphones, you'll be able to hear that difference. So yeah, just a few slight additions. Again, in those last couple of bars, I've added in another bass cello as well. I think that's a double bass I've added, just to give that extra oomph before going into the next section. So the next section is where I can really bring out my own ideas. So I wanted to bring in a choir, and I wanted to make it a build up. 16 bars is quite a long time, so I thought this is the perfect time now to bring in a build up. So I had a choir part here, and then I've got some risers down here, and I think maybe I don't actually. No, I don't have a snare. I've got some bass hits here with some brass here. So that's giving a bit of punch. I've got another brass part here, doing almost like a glissando, just to add that extra bit of tension, and then I've added some distortion onto that just to give it some more weight in the mix, and compression as per usual. A lot of the instruments I'm using are from Points West, not Points West, that's the news channel. East-West. Points West, jeez. East-West is the kind of program that I'm using for the orchestral elements, and they're very, very good. They sound very real. The Logic ones aren't so good. BBC Symphony Orchestra is pretty good, but there's not so much scope for editing and manipulating the sounds. So yeah, East-West are the best instruments to use, in my opinion. So that's the build-up. I've got some strings in there as well. Bum, bum. So just adding a bit more there. And then a brass kind of chromatic part here, just before the bass hit, the drop hits. So that bum bum bum, bum bum bum, just adds that extra bit of tension just before the drop hits. And then for the drop, I've put an LFO on the choir, so the choir part in the build is the same as in the drop. It's just got an LFO tool on it, which is just stuttering it essentially. And I've also coupled that with a choir lower down in the mix, which is not being stuttered but just fills up the space. It's got a slight bit of sidechain on it, but just together fills the space a bit better rather than just having a band. So if I play it all together, you'll hear there's a bit of a difference in terms of the space. I think it sounds slightly empty. So that extra choir is just filling those gaps, which I think is quite necessary because you don't want the track to sound empty. I've got a couple of other choir parts just filling in the gaps as well, just some drone notes. But again, quite low down in the mix, but that's quite usual to have those drone notes just filling the space. Got a bass line there made in Serum. Couple of compressors, and then just some sidechain. Brass hit and some more brass here again as with the drop, and then just a kick drum. No processing on that whatsoever. And then as we get further into the drop, we've got more drums. I'm just going to take these out now, solo them. So we've got the claps coming in. There's 3 claps all put together on top of each other, and then we've got a hat, and then we've got also a loop, which is kind of giving the 16 notes on the hat there. Bit of energy. So that's the drop basically. There's a few other elements. We've got a trumpet up here, all for the labels as choir, but it's not choir, obviously. Again, that's in East-West. And then a harpsichord also playing some notes there, some chords. So a few different elements, but that's kind of the basic structure of the piece. I've then also got kind of a different section when a lot of the drums come out. So I actually wrote some of this as the original drop when I first started it. When I first wrote the piece, this was kind of going to be the original drop, but I wasn't happy with it. I wasn't happy with how it sounded, so I actually ended up binning this, or kind of just muting it, which is what I normally do. If I'm not happy with the drop, I'll mute it, and maybe I'll come back to it later. So I muted this, wrote a different drop, which actually happened by accident. I accidentally put the stutter tool on the choir or something, and it sounded good, and then it's that ended up being the drop. A lot of good things in music production happen by accident, and yeah. So this was originally going to be the first drop. This was originally going to be the first drop, but I kind of felt I didn't have the same. It didn't have the powerful drop that I wanted, so I've stuck it to the side, and then when I kind of needed that breakdown feel, I then listened back to this and thought, oh, okay, this might actually work. So I put this after the drop, and it actually works quite well as kind of that intermediary, this kind of joining section between the drop and the second kind of section of the track. So this is 8 bars with the kick drum and with drums, and then drums are taken out, the kick's taken out, sorry, bass is taken out. We've got some drums at the bottom here filtered down slightly, and I've also got the Amadeus laugh, so the Mozart laugh here. So that's from the film Amadeus. If you haven't seen that, I definitely recommend watching that. It's a great film about Mozart. So taken some laughs from him there, and added a couple more bits of instrumentation. Again, my labelling is quite terrible. I do need to work on this because it's pretty bad. But this is not a choir. This is harp playing here, playing a little lead. Got some drone notes there as well. I think one of those is a synth from Serum, and one of them is a choir. So that one is labelled correctly. So that's kind of the breakdown almost. So this is a part which allows for kind of a breakdown in energy. You've obviously had the drop, and then you want a section where the energy is not so in your face. So this is that kind of section, and then we get to the end of that section, and then I've isolated one of my favourite parts of the original Mozart piece, which is this section here. It's a very nice riff, got a lot of tension to it, so I just repeated that a couple of times, added some woodwind, I think that's some oboe, some clarinet, some flute, and then, there's a lot going on. So after that, I've then got a little clap before bringing everything else in. So I wanted that kind of orchestral feel to still remain. So you've still got the that idea, even though there's a drum beat there, you've still got that idea of the orchestra taken away, and you've just got a couple of parts, and then the orchestra comes in very suddenly with a powerful riff, which is the original riff. And you'll probably be able to hear there as well, I've got a kick drum at the bottom there, which is filtered down, as you can see here. I've EQ'd it pretty much, probably about 200. It's out there. Let's have a look. Yeah, 129. So pretty low down on the audio spectrum. This is giving a bit of a beat. And it works surprisingly well with Mozart's original stuff. So I've just kind of copied over from the first 16 bars, some of that section there. And then I wanted to vary the second build-up slightly. So rather than going straight into another build-up with the choir, just got the impact and the brass to give some tension, and then I've added in some cinematic kind of hits to again give some tension into the beginning of the build-up. And then the build comes in again after 4 bars with some snares this time. I've got 2 different snare loops. Occasionally I use snare loops, or probably half and half actually. Sometimes I use snare loops. I've coupled 2 different snare loops here because I think either of them by themselves wouldn't quite fit the sound, but together they kind of do fill the space correctly. And other times I'll just use a snare sample and write the build up myself. But I felt these snare builds actually works quite well. And again, the drop is very similar to the first one, except from the drums come straight in. The first drop obviously just had the kick drum, but with this, we have everything coming in at the start. apart from the 16th notes, which will come in after 8 bars. But you've got the hat and you've got the clap, as you would in a normal house track or dance track. The second drop, again, very, very similar. And then kind of the outro is this 8-bar section here, which is again the kind of similar to the breakdown after the first drop. I've just got another Amadeus laugh to feed things out at the end there. So that's kind of the track in its entirety. So this track was written quite quickly once I got the orchestral part down. But sometimes tracks can take ages. I remember that Toccata Vidal track I did took me. In fact, I was sitting on the idea for probably about 6 months, if not a year. I knew that I wanted to make it into a dance track, but I wasn't sure how. So I just had this kind of file completely untouched, and eventually I got round to making it into a dance track and came up with something I was happy with. But that was just an idea that I had a long time ago, and then you come back to it and sometimes it sounds good. But with this, I got the orchestral parts down, and then I kind of got to work immediately and had something I was happy with within the same day, and then I just needed to build it out over the space of a couple of days and get it all finished. But yeah, that's the kind of basis of how I make my tracks. If you've got any questions about any further details, then do let me know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this one. But yeah, I mean that's the kind of general idea of how I make a track. It does obviously vary track to track, but with the classical dance remixes, a lot of it is transcription. So I'm working on a piece by Prokofiev at the moment. I'm just transcribing that. There's a lot of orchestral parts in his orchestral works, so just getting that done, and then I'll be getting on to the kind of more original side of things and putting my own imprint on it. So that's the thing that I have the most fun with, which is kind of the section from the build up to the drop, where I can come up with my own ideas and put my own twist on the tracks, which is always fun. But yeah, that's all I've got to say, I think. If you want to know any more details about the process of production, then yeah, let me know in the comments and I'll maybe do another video on it. But that's my basic process. As you can see, there's quite a lot going on, and a lot of it is experimentation. There's still quite a few muted tracks in here, as you can see, but that's after having deleted loads and loads of parts. So it's a lot of trial and error, and a lot of trying to just see what works. And some tracks, they never get to the point where I'm happy with them. But with this one, managed to get an idea down that I was very happy with, and yeah, that's where it's released. So yeah, I'll release that on Friday. That's all released now, and yeah, it's available on all streaming platforms.